Aura pressed the mop into the soapy water, the faint scent of citrus cleaner clinging to her hands. The hallway stretched ahead in perfect symmetry, polished marble floors, golden wall sconces casting soft light, and silence so deep she could hear the hum of the air conditioning. It was the kind of silence that felt owned, like the building itself belonged to people who had never needed to rush or worry. Nora, however, lived by the clock. Each minute cleaning was a minute closer to picking up her daughter Claire from Mrs. Davenport's apartment 2 floors down. She worked fast, her sneakers squeaking faintly, until a movement at the far end of the hall made her stop. A tall man in a tailored charcoal suit stood near the penthouse door. He wasn't moving, just watching. Her first instinct was to apologize for being in the way, but something in his stillness made her hesitate. "The night cleaner," he said finally, his voice even but low. Nora straightened, tightening her grip on the mop handle. "Yes. Sorry if I'm no," he cut in. "I just haven't seen you before." She offered a polite nod, keeping her distance. His presence was unsettling, not threatening, but focused, as though he could see past her uniform and into the life she kept hidden. He stepped closer, the soft leather of his shoes soundless against the marble. "Gabriel," he said, offering no last name. "Nora," she replied. There was no handshake, no smile, just a brief flicker of acknowledgement. In his dark eyes, before he turned to his door, the penthouse swallowed him without a sound, and the hallway felt emptier than before. Nora exhaled slowly. Later that night, she finished mopping near the elevators. She glanced toward the penthouse again. For a second, she thought she saw movement through the frosted glass. Gabriel may be standing in the shadows. She pushed the thought away. Rich tenants sometimes noticed the help out of boredom, nothing more. When she clocked out, rain pattered softly outside. Claire was curled on Mrs. Davenport's couch, coloring on a scrap piece of paper. "Mommy, I drew the big building again," she said proudly, holding up a skyline sketch in pencil. Nora smiled, kissing her daughter's forehead. "That's beautiful, baby." As they walked to the bus stop, Nora thought of the man in the hallway, his sharp gaze, the way he had said her name like it mattered. She told herself it was nothing, but somewhere high above them in the penthouse. Gabriel was standing at the window, watching the rain blur the city lights, wondering why he couldn't stop thinking about the cleaner who looked back at him without fear, an unexpected invitation, after that first awkward encounter in the penthouse hallway. Sophia thought she'd never see him again. She couldn't stop replaying the moment in her mind, the warmth in his eyes, the way his voice seemed to ease the exhaustion in her bones. But a week later, she was scrubbing the marble floors in the lobby. The building manager approached her with an unusual request. "The penthouse owner wants you to come upstairs," he said, eyeing her curiously. "Specifically, you." Confused, Sophia followed him up the glass elevator, her mind racing with questions. When the doors slid open, Ethan was standing there, this time not in a sharp suit, but in a casual sweater, holding 2 steaming mugs of coffee. "I thought you might need a break," he said softly. "And I was hoping to apologize properly for the other day." Sophia hesitated. She had learned long ago that people like him and people like her lived in separate worlds. But there was something in his gaze, genuine, unguarded, that made her step inside. They sat in his sprawling living room, surrounded by floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city lights. He asked about her life, her son, the way she fought every day to keep going. She expected pity, but instead, he listened, truly listened, and when she spoke about her dreams, he looked at her as though they weren't impossible at all. For the first time in years, Sophia felt like someone saw her not as a cleaner, not as a struggling single mom, but as a woman with worth. What she didn't know was that Ethan was already planning to change her life forever. The hidden connection in Sophia's life began to shift slowly. Daniel's small acts of kindness, a warm meal sent anonymously, a new pair of shoes left by her dorm, made her wonder if someone was silently watching out for her. She never connected these gestures to the man in the penthouse. One rainy evening, while Sophia was scrubbing the lobby floor, she overheard 2 wealthy tenants talking. They mentioned the mysterious Daniel Cross, a billionaire who rarely showed his face, but whose fortune had saved the building from foreclosure. Sophia thought little of it, till she glanced up and saw Daniel watching her again, an unreadable expression in his eyes. The truth began to unfold when Sophia's young son, Leo, fell ill at school. With no money for private care, Sophia rushed him to the public clinic. But when she arrived, she found the best doctors already waiting courtesy of Daniel. When she confronted him, Daniel hesitated, then confessed. Years ago, Sophia had unknowingly saved his life during a construction accident by calling emergency services when others ignored him. He had been searching for her ever since. As the rain poured outside the penthouse balcony, Daniel told her he wasn't helping out of pity, but because she had changed his life long before he ever dreamed of changing hers. The penthouse invitation, Alina hadn't expected the penthouse door to open so quickly. She'd been clutching her cleaning caddy, fully prepared to say something like, "I'm here to clean," just as she always did in other apartments. But the man who opened the door stopped her words in her throat. Ethan Hale stood there, dressed casually in a crisp white shirt with the top 2 buttons undone. The way the evening light from behind him caught the edges of his jawline almost made him look unreal. His expression was calm, but his eyes studied her as though he had been waiting for her to arrive. "You're here," he said simply. Alina blinked. "Yes. The company sent me to clean, I know," Ethan cut in gently, stepping aside. "Come in," she hesitated. The penthouse was unlike anything she'd ever seen. Flortuzzel's glass windows revealed a breathtaking city skyline. With the sunset spilling gold and rose over the horizon, the scent of warm coffee and expensive cologne filled the air. Every surface gleamed. Every piece of furniture seemed like it belonged in a magazine. She shifted uncomfortably. "It's already spotless." "I don't think there's much for me, too. I didn't ask for you to clean," Ethan said, his tone even, but with something softer beneath it. Her eyes darted up to meet his. "Then why am I here?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he walked over to the counter and poured a cup of tea from a delicate porcelain pot. "You always finish your shift late," he said, placing the cup on the kitchen island. "And you never stop at the cafe downstairs, even though they have good food." Her chest tightened. You noticed that?" Ethan leaned against the counter, his gaze still fixed on her. "I notice a lot more than you think." Elena's cheeks heated. No one noticed her, not in the way he was saying it. It's not since before her life had fallen apart. "I don't have time for cafes," she said quietly. "Or money." His voice was calm, but the question landed like a stone in her stomach. She didn't answer. He gestured to the tea. "Drink. You look like you haven't eaten properly in days." Her pride warred with the gnawing hunger she'd been ignoring all week. She took a seat, wrapping her fingers around the cup. It was warm, soothing. The first sip sent heat through her chest, and for a moment she felt almost safe, but safety was dangerous. She set the cup down. "Why are you being so kind to me? You don't even know me." Ethan's lips curved, but it wasn't a smirk. It was something gentler. "Maybe I want to know you." Her heart skipped, then men. His phone rang. He glanced at the screen, and for the briefest second, his jaw tightened. He silenced it without answering. "You're not supposed to be in this world, are you?" Ethan said suddenly. Alina frowned. "What?" "This city. The towers. The people who walk past without seeing you. You're not like them. You survive here. But you don't belong to this coldness." She didn't know what to say. Ethan stepped closer, his presence commanding, but not threatening. "Alina, you're working yourself to the bone, carrying a weight you shouldn't have to carry alone." Her throat tightened. "Then tell me," he said, his voice low, almost a plea. She swallowed. Part of her wanted to get up and run, the other part lonely, exhausted, and aching wanted to stay and let someone else hold the weight for just a little while. Instead, she stood. "I should go." Ethan's eyes darkened, but he didn't stop her. "If you walk out now, I won't chase you," he said. "But I will tell you this. People like you don't go unnoticed forever. And when someone finally sees you, you'll never be the same." Her heart thudded as she walked to the door. But before she could open it, his voice came again, gentler. This time, come back tomorrow. Not to work, just come back. Alina hesitated. She didn't answer, but as she stepped into the hallway, she realized her hands were trembling and not from fear, from the dangerous hope blooming in her chest. A new beginning. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the tall glass windows of the penthouse, painting the room in warm gold. Amelia stirred awake, realizing she had fallen asleep on the couch after a long night of conversation with Ethan. They had talked about everything: her struggles, his regrets, their dreams. She glanced toward the kitchen and froze. Ethan stood there, barefoot, wearing a plain white t-shirt and holding a frying pan. Looking completely unlike the powerful CEO she had first met, he caught her staring and smirked. "Morning. I made breakfast," he said. Amelia chuckled softly. "You cook?" "I'm full of surprises," he replied, setting a plate of fluffy pancakes on the table. "Sit, eat." It felt oddly intimate, almost like a family scene she had longed for but never had. She ate quietly, her mind swirling with thoughts. It had been weeks since she first met him, and in that time, her life had shifted in ways she never imagined. Later that day, Ethan walked with her to the community center where Amelia had been, volunteering in her spare hours. He was donating funds for a renovation project. The staff greeted her warmly, but they were clearly starstruck by Ethan's presence. "This is the man who's been making everything possible," she introduced proudly. Ethan shook hands with the volunteers, but kept glancing at Amelia as though she were the only one in the room. That evening, after taking Lily to the park, Amelia and Ethan sat on a bench, watching her daughter play. Lily ran up to Ethan with a big smile. "Can you come to my school play next week?" she asked innocently. Ethan's expression softened. "I wouldn't miss it for the world." Amelia's heart clenched. She realized just how much Ethan had become part of their lives. But happiness didn't come without shadows. A few days later, a tabloid headline exploded online. CEO Ethan Drake linked to struggling single mother. It was full of intrusive photos, including one of them at the park with Lily. Amelia's stomach twisted. At the cafe where she still worked part-time, whispers spread like wildfire. Customers eyed her with judgment. That night she sat in her small apartment, wondering if she should distance herself to protect Lily. Ethan showed up at her door. He didn't knock, he simply stood there, holding the paper in his hand. "I'm sorry you're dragged into this," he said, his jaw tight. "But I won't let you go because of them." Amelia blinked, unsure. "Ethan, this isn't just about me. Lily's life, our peace." He stepped closer, his voice steady but emotional. "Amelia, I've lived most of my life in a world where people only saw my bank account and my company's worth. Then you came along, you saw me, not the CEO, me. And I'm not letting that go." Her eyes stung. "What if I'm not ready for all that attention? Then we'll face it together. I'll protect both of you." A week later at Lily's school play, Ethan sat beside Amelia in the front row. Cameras flashed outside, but he didn't care. He clapped louder than anyone when Lily finished her part, and afterward, he lifted her in his arms, grinning like a proud father. In that moment, Amelia knew she didn't have to fight her battles alone anymore. Months passed. Amelia no longer scrubbed floors to survive as she was now managing a small bakery funded by Ethan, but run entirely by her. Lily thrived in school, and Ethan, he still surprised her every day, sometimes with flowers. Sometimes with quiet mornings where they simply watched the city together. One night, on the same park bench where they had once talked about dreams, Ethan pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. "Amelia," he said softly, "you once told me you'd never had someone who stayed. I'm here to change that. Will you let me?" Tears filled her eyes as she nodded. "Yes." Under the city lights, with Lily asleep in the car nearby, Ethan slipped the ring onto her finger. It wasn't just a proposal, it was a promise that she would never have to face the world alone again.